Okay, thank you, Pascal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody, wherever you are. Just to play us in, I asked Liz, one of our speakers, who I'll introduce in a minute, to give us a song which for her reflected last year, 2020, and I think we can all empathise with "I Will Survive." So thank you for joining us. This is our UFI Connects number 37. If you just want to say hello in the chat and let us know, where you're joining from today, that'd be great. As with all of our other sessions today, we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible. So if you use the chat on the right-hand side to ask questions of the speakers, the UFI team will come to you and hopefully we can get you involved a bit later on. So without further ado, I'd like to, perhaps ask our speakers to introduce themselves. So firstly, I guess if we do it chronologically. So Liz, joining us from Connecticut. Liz Irving is the Executive Vice President, Head of Marketing, Technology and Customer Experience at Clarion Events, Inc. in North America. Hi Liz, do you want to say hi and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in the industry, where you're joining us from?
Hi, sure. I'm Liz Irving. I'm with Clarion Events North America, and I oversee marketing and technology and customer experience. So this will be my 21st year in the event industry. It's been quite an exciting ride, especially the last 10 or 11 months as we've gone through COVID and innovation and change and where digital is headed. So I'm excited to join the conversation today and share with you what we've been doing at Clarion and kind of where we see the future of live events and how digital is going to augment that in our view.
Perfect, thank you, Liz. And also joining us is Laura McCartney, who she'll be playing us, chosen a song at the end, which will reflect how she feels about this year. But Laura, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us, because you'll slightly have a different background and experience?
Yeah, of course, Nick. Hi, everyone. Laura McCartney, working for Informa Markets as Head of Exhibitor Experience. So really looking forward to discussing this topic with you today. And hopefully I can bring you some insight from what our customers are saying and how really it's affected their experience as it's affected all of us, going through this pandemic. So looking forward to hearing from you and any questions that you might have as well.
Perfect, thank you. And so just, I want to welcome you all once again. In fact, I can see Mark Brewster there with his 5-day-old baby son, George. So welcome to George Brewster to your first UFI Connects. So yeah, the topic today is, has the pandemic changed the customer value of exhibitions? Look, obviously we're starting a new year and I'm here in London, in many parts of the world, it's quite depressing to be in the situation where we are. We're in heavy lockdown again, no particular end in sight. And of course that has a knock-on effect for all of our events. This time last year, even, February, March, when we saw it coming, I don't think any of us quite foresaw that we would still be in this situation now. You may have seen yesterday that there's a policy paper research published by the EEIA. Today, there is a EU heads of states meeting to talk about the Greek Prime Minister's proposition to enable the resumption of international travel by means of either a digital passport, whether that's vaccination or testing passport, because we really need the return of international travel to be able to get our events up and running soon. So if you do see that, please share it and support it. But certainly, we've obviously all been forced to meet online, take our communities online, as we're doing so today. We'd very much like to meet face to face again. But arguably, this has been a positive. If we look beyond, we know that our business model has not changed in decades, if not longer. And certainly we were struggling with digitization or pseudo-digitization. And there's the famous quote, I think it's by Lenin, that there are years when decades happen. Certainly this seems to be one of those years. So on the other side of it, what will happen? Are we going to go back to business as usual? I mean, I don't think any of us fully agree that's going to happen. And certainly there is a huge pent-up demand for us to meet face to face again. But what will that look like? What does that mean for our customers? And what's changed? So really interesting topic, which affects all of us. As I say, if you have any questions or any statements or just want to talk about something, please say it in the chat and then the UFI team will come to you. But just to kick it off, yeah, if I can start with you, Liz. So just from your point of view, what's been your customers' experience during the pandemic, thus far? So both from the exhibitor side and the visitor side.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything first that you said. I think the pandemic gave us a real opportunity to stop and pause, which I don't think we would have had the opportunity to do before if we weren't faced with a challenge. So we spent a lot of time talking with markets, what do the markets need, what do our customers need? And there's a lot of really interesting nuggets that came out of it. But I think going back to the event business, what we found the most of is there was a strong need for connections. And we are proving it today, connections can happen digitally. So we found new ways to take our markets forward by helping them address the needs today, helping them connect in new ways digitally. But we also came across finding new ways to provide different products of value. And for us, it was about how do we connect folks through different types of content series, episodic content series. It's showrooms with live product demonstrations for our folks that were an e-commerce platform. We've launched membership platforms, and we've spent a lot of time investing in, and we just acquired Quartz Events, the hosted buyer one-to-one meeting business, which has proven to be really strong and will continue to be strong as we come through in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you. I mean, interesting, episodic content, hosted buyers, some interesting topics. Laura, same question to you.
Yeah, so I think it's a hot topic, isn't it? And again, Nick, I echo what you've been saying. I think, people's lives have fundamentally shifted. And in turn, that has changed the way that they engage with events. So like everyone, we had to quickly adapt to this new normal, transitioning to, virtual events and marketplaces to keep sort of, I guess, the industries that we serve connected. So I guess in a way, Informa Markets, we were quite fortunate that we'd already been kind of well along the way to, I guess, the digital transformation. So we were able to employ those virtual solutions fairly quickly. And our customers did genuinely value the opportunity to connect during the pandemic. I think whilst we've seen sort of greater reach and, meaningful business opportunities through these virtual solutions, there was feedback that they just missed being on site. They missed being on the show floor. There are massive advantages to, virtual events that we will continue to pursue. And I think the industry will continue to pursue in 21. But, and sorry, these include sort of, unbounded reach, immediate feedback, greater insight for buyers. And I think what we can all see really is that the tactile experience of trade events and the value of in-person connections are irreplaceable. I think we sort of being the global business that we're in, there was a different experience for everyone. Each of our customers went through something very, very different. And I think regardless of the industry that they operated in, checking in with our customers and showing real empathy to the situation became an essential requirement. So, we were constantly speaking to them, asking them about the impact that it had had on their business. And we received research that we did saying that over 40% of our visitors and 55% of our exhibitors reported a huge impact on their business. But yet at the same time, we received feedback from our customers saying that they were almost relieved when live events, with a large majority of them relying on, international audience, were cancelled because employees within this business were, afraid to travel. So I think what we noticed, certainly in the last year or so, is that what our customers need from us is more. They need more support. They need more engagement throughout every touch point in this new normal. And I think, they still almost want to hold out for the return of in-person events. But I think as the world has sort of recognized that this pandemic is far more, far-reaching than any of us would ever have almost imagined, customers have started to begin embracing the digital. So I think just to conclude that, in our customer experience team, in particular at Informa Markets, what we've really embraced is speaking to our customers and sort of understanding their evolving needs in this era, and sort of almost moving from a position of learning together to now a position of, leading our I guess, industry's evolution to these complementary digital and data solutions. And I think, our customers have now really started to see the value in both virtual and in-person experiences.
Yeah, I mean, so, I guess these are all positives. They want more support, they want more engagement, they want to be more connected to you. These are all things that we've been, as an industry, grappling with for years, saying, how do we get away from this kind of, monetization of just the kind of 3 days every year or 2 or 3? And, I guess in terms of how to do that, obviously you both work in lots of different shows, lots of different communities across different industries. What are the type of ways you're doing that? Liz, we were talking just now before about your Halloween event. So can you tell us a bit more about, how that worked? Because, well, there were some examples of product showcases being done middle of last year, and these are some of the larger events in China which perhaps weren't so successful. So obviously things move very fast in tech. 6 months later, it sounds like you've got that working.
Yeah, I mean, I think, last year was a lot of learning and discovery, and we tried a lot. And I think what we did is we iterated every time we went forward to say, what was the best piece of this? What did our customers enjoy, and how do we make it better? I will echo that the technology partners are true partners. They are evolving as fast as they can and keeping up with customer demand and need, which I think has helped us get to where we are today. So, in some of our cases, the Halloween example, for sure, we're ending that virtual event today. And we've launched more of a series of live product demonstrations. So those customers are craving to make orders. So we've been facilitating ways for them to do live product demonstrations from their homes to showcase the newest products, the newest technologies and animatronics. It's gotten tremendous response. It doesn't replace face-to-face, but it's allowing for those connections to be made further upstream, and then helping those customers who connect face-to-face with a virtual meeting or a demonstration to go further down the line towards a sales conversation. I think one of the other ways that we've looked at this is by saying, how do we take the position of strength that our brands offer, whether it's thought leadership or it's sourcing or it's discovery and connection, and using those pieces as stronger formats for our virtual and digital experiences, which has worked quite well. The other piece I would add is we brought forward a virtual product marketing team who now is our digital product marketing team. And what I love about that is they're at the forefront of customer experience and customer journey. They're seeing how different markets respond, how different products respond, and we're iterating the process and improving as we go to drive further engagement with the products as we go forward.
Okay, and just because, obviously these are an entirely new skill set that we're employing, and at UFI we produced our first kind of digital congress in November, which again, UFI is very good at producing events, but they're typically, an old-fashioned congress, and where do the chairs go and where's the dinner going to be? Suddenly we have to be broadcasters and all these different technologies. So, in your world, and I don't want to I'm not asking for you to kind of name suppliers, but you talked about the Quartz acquisition for hosted buyers. I mean, with the digital showcase, is that technology you built or you outsourced, or?
A lot of it is technology that's out there. We worked really strong with our partners to say, help us. This is not our core competency. Help us build the right experience for our customers. And the third-party vendors that we work with have been very supportive to say, here's how we can do it. Here's what we've seen. And I think even conversations like today, talking to your other colleagues in the industry, what are you using? How are you doing it? That's how we brought it in. I'll be honest, there are times we've hobbled pieces together, but man, we're getting so much better about what works and doing more of the what works and putting aside the pieces that maybe were more of a clunky experience.
Okay, and Laura, same question to you about the kind of the types of digital services and how they kind of fit in. Where...
Yeah, I mean, I think. Go on, Nick. Sorry.
No, that was it.
So yeah, I mean, I think with the challenge that we've all had, I think, is that we're suddenly offering a virtual event or a virtual platform. To me, quite honestly, sat as an experienced, customer obsessed sort of individual. To me, it doesn't really matter so much about the platforms. It's really looking at, okay, all of a sudden you're offering a solution to a customer that is so used to face-to-face events. So they've had different expectations, and sometimes even offering this new platform, they don't even know what expectations they have. So it's really important that we manage those. You know, I think the value of a virtual event that we need to get across to our customers is that it lies in, you know, the reach and the data. There's an immense business opportunity, but to be honest, in its simplest forms, it's completely different. You know, our customers are very used to and know what's normal when it comes to a live event, you know, footfall, number of leads that they're going to get, meetings for an on-site event, but they've had no way of benchmarking, you know, what is good for a virtual event. So, you know, when we're talking to them, you have some exhibitors that will give you feedback who have made, you know, 500 connections over 3 days and have called this a bad result. But what they are not necessarily, and this is where it comes back on us, they're not necessarily educated in knowing that, you know, these connections are great because you know exactly who's contacting you. They show genuine interest, which is very different to somebody just potentially walking by your booth. But what they're missing from that on-site piece is obtaining leads a lot more organically, which they're not getting. So I think, you know, it's really about kind of education is key for our exhibitors in this changing world for us. And it's about, you know, going back to they need more from us, they need more engagement. You really have to now be asking the right questions. So, you know, what transactions matter? What engagements matter? And, you know, how can we ensure that when we do return, or however we are returning, that we're returning, you know, confidently in 2021 and giving them the confidence that, you know, the value is still there, even if it's in a different format.
And just to kind of throw it back at, you know, what engagements do matter? Again, you know, obviously it's hard to generalize, but, you know, what are the engagements that they are looking for typically?
I think, you know, digital typically offers the scale that physical doesn't. You know, I think physical does have some limitations. I think with digital, we can almost look to building kind of smaller, more sub communities where you can really start to hone in on those customers and, you know, the sort of the buyers or the sellers that they're looking for. And so, you know, you may find that actually there is a lot more platforms and a lot more opportunities for them to connect, but just on a smaller scale, rather than maybe one, you know, massive physical event every 1 or 2 years. So I think those are the types of, you know, engagements that our clients are looking for, and it's more all year round now. There's almost a demand for this now, whereas, you know, back in March last year there wasn't. So it's certainly different.
So I just want to add on the, I'm sorry, Nick, on the part of like what is good, because I think that's a piece that we struggled with as we started to launch into digital marketplaces, because we were measuring customer expectation against live shows, which is very different digitally. But I think you're spot on, Laura, that it's about a smaller, more targeted, relevant community, and it's going to personal connections. And, you know, as an event industry, we are really good at connections. Doing things digitally now, we have even more of an opportunity to make more relevant, meaningful connections further upstream, and then help that customer nurture those leads further towards, you know, a sale or a conversation or a solution, which I think is really exciting to open us up for more opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's kind of brings to mind Talia El-Ghazar's, you know, she talks about micro tribes. And in fact, that she did a session at the UFI Congress on micro tribes, which if you didn't catch it and you're an UFI member, you can log on and you can watch it after this. And just, Liz, to stick with you, because you were talking about, you know, the digital marketing teams and the virtual product teams, because obviously, you know, our traditional sales teams, you know, sell square meters, and we hope that they sell sponsorships and other things too, but, you know, that has been the reality. So are these kind of existing sales teams that you're kind of retraining, or are you bringing in people from outside?
We're using our existing sales teams, but I think they have an appetite to really understand what they can do and sell differently. So when I look at Clarion North America as a whole, when we go into the further into 2021 and beyond, our product mix of what we offer will be live, it will be digital, and it will be meetings. So our teams have much more in their toolkit to be able to sell in a consultative way to deliver valuable connections. So I think what's been really great is the data we're collecting, the trends we're seeing. We've got more to unlock to give them the tools to talk to their customers differently. And what I'm seeing as a whole across the board is in digital, we're finding much more decision makers who are making a point in experiencing what we have to offer. And those are the folks that we can drive those conversations. While the audience could be smaller digitally, you're going to get a better quality. And I think that's something that we have to unlock more of through our teams and through our sales conversations.
Yeah, Laura, I can see you nodding along. Anything to add on that point?
Yeah, I think I echo, a lot of what Liz is saying there. I think, the almost the biggest silver lining, if you can call it that, with this pandemic is it's excelled our expertise in this area. We've all had to just adopt digital all of a sudden. And I think at Informa, what we're really looking to do is sort of build, a hybrid strategy. So we look to provide, really tailored content for varying customer needs, sort of almost providing customers with a choice now, and reaching, existing and new audiences is going to be, I think, really key to getting their buy-in. So that does open up, I guess, new expertise in certain fields, in certain teams. But I think there is certainly a lot more opportunity for teams and resources to evolve, as we kind of evolve this strategy itself.
And back to you, Laura, the same question on the kind of skills needed. Are these, and potentially even not just the sales teams, but even higher up the tree, as it were, are you tapping into kind of, other industries' skill sets and experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we'd like to say that, we all know who our competitors are. When we were in the physical event space, I think, we were fairly aware of who our competitors are. I think kind of being thrown into this digital transformation, all of a sudden our pool of competitors is enormous. You look out there in terms of, the digital world and, the virtual events that are on offer and the digital e-commerce platforms that you've got out there, and the way that they are just so far ahead in terms of customer experiences and developing bespoke content and exactly what you want at a click of a button. We've got to get there. And so, as I said, really understanding your customers and speaking to them, we need to kind of just throw ourselves in there and really start to develop, because we need to keep up with the times now, and we need to keep up with this demand.
Yes, so we've got a couple of questions that have just come in from Matt Harris from Conduco. Hi, Matt, joining us from Geneva. So if the UFI team can, I've just done it. So I think you can unmute now, Matt, and jump in and ask a question. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see everybody. Sorry, there was a typo. I hit enter too quickly. So as organisers, Laura and Liz, two questions. One, are you looking at keeping the digital component of your shows to allow people to connect forever and a day, basically acknowledging that people will participate in your shows digitally? And the second question is, do you see your platform staying open for longer periods to allow more time to actually browse and connect?
Liz, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So definitely we are looking at more digital strategies throughout the year. So we're actually working on, we've always done event strategies. Now we're building them to say, what does your portfolio event and digital strategy together look like? Because in our minds, those both fuel the engagement wheel across the business in the industries we serve. About keeping the platforms open longer, I think, yeah, absolutely. But I also think what's really exciting is the platforms don't have to be as they've always been. It doesn't have to be you plan your show, you make meetings, you end. Now it can be you plan your show, you have great connections. Maybe you didn't get all your meetings, so afterwards we're going to hold a couple of virtual meetings for you. Or afterwards we're going to have some dedicated roundtables by this topic series. So I think it's opening us up to think about how digital can augment experiences, but it doesn't have to be the same way we've always positioned ourselves as event leaders in the industry.
Laura, same question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I echo a lot of what Liz has said. I think in our markets, there's not one size fits all kind of approach to this. We have different markets, operating in different ways. Essentially, a lot of them are looking at, not digital as a replacement to in-person events, but almost, they complement it. So I think, the biggest thing that we're looking at now is that the way you communicate with your customer is that, going back to Liz's point, is that you're not selling an exhibition booth space anymore. You're essentially selling a marketing solution. So, you know, you really are expanding that reach. And it goes back to my point about building communities and getting more meaningful connections. You know, I think having a platform, and not necessarily stating 365 days of the year, but getting that pre, during, and post engagement, no matter what format that is what our customers have been, you know, pleading for, you know, and certainly in our customer feedback for the last couple of years. So, yeah, it's really going to start to evolve, but there are different strategies across different markets, and it's about tapping into what's the best for what customer type.
Yeah, no, I mean, as you say, you know, this is kind of what we arguably should have been offering for years. So it's kind of given us a kick up the bum that we needed. So, Liz, earlier on, you mentioned episodic content. That's a new one on me. Can you possibly elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, through our energy business, through the market conversations and a lot of the one-on-one customer conversations about what was the need, there was a need for learning and education and connecting that way. So the team very smartly leveraged the strength of their brands and their editors, and they worked to develop content series. So each month we developed a plus series. There was a way to connect customers through learning and engagement, and a way for sponsors to be attached to thought leadership. So we hold these digital episodic content series every month. There's different themes, and we have a combination of editorial presented content and sponsor presented content. And it's a way to not only continue to educate and sort of have a hand in the conversation, but it's also a way to bring customers together and for sponsors to still get in front of the customers they most want to see, that will move towards solutions when we come back to the face-to-face trade shows.
Nice. And Laura, around, you know, how are you approaching kind of content in this kind of, you know, linear approach to events and your communities?
So I think there's a different approach. Some may say, okay, we need to be very careful because we don't want to, going back into that hybrid kind of solution, we don't want to almost have content competing with a physical event once we return. So there really is, you know, a brand new strategy, almost going completely back to basics and tapping into content that we've seen physically in our conferences to say, okay, what are sort of, you know, the most leading topics here, and how can we integrate that into a virtual environment, but still almost help to stimulate some of our, you know, key clients in getting the, you know, the leads that they need during the sort of physical event dates. So again, it really does evolve across platforms, but I think the marketplaces that we're bringing online really just help to facilitate those conversations and those leads that our clients are looking for.
Yeah. Thank you. So just seeing a question in the chat now. Anurag, so if we can come to you and you can unmute yourself, the UFI team should have unmuted you. I mean, talking about, I guess I saw an expression today, I've forgotten it, it was that memorable, but basically to do with digital exhaustion, which, you know, we can all kind of empathize with, which, yes, you know, we really do want to get back to meeting. So Anurag, there you are, hi. So do you want to tell us about your experience?
Hi.
Which company are you from?
So we with Virgo Communication and Exhibitions. We do a lot of shows on the elevator and escalator industry, the gear tech industry. Unfortunately or fortunately, Nick, what's happened in the last couple of months is that since the vaccine rollout has happened and the cases have gone down, suddenly the clients are more looking forward to the face-to-face events, and there's less traction now for virtual events. So hopefully they're thinking that maybe in the second half of the year, things would be more open up, and suddenly they feel that virtual is not something which is going to give them the kind of momentum for business what they're looking at.
Yes, thank you. I mean, just to say, I mean, I don't think anyone would disagree with you. And, you know, we conducted our research with Explory, the Global Recovery Index, which showed exactly that there are some areas which digital can do as well, if not better. But most of the business objectives, you know, cannot be achieved digitally. People, you know, in comparison with face-to-face. So certainly everybody wants to get back to face-to-face as soon as possible. That's I guess, a huge positive in that this pivot to virtual has turned into, oh my God, when can we meet again? But I guess it's more until we can, we're obliged to kind of meet virtually. And then, as Liz and Laura are talking about, we now have all these tools so that beyond the 3 days of your trade show, you could be, rather than just, obviously the days of 3 days of wandering around and just trying to kind of, be effective are long gone. Certainly there's no reason you couldn't have several weeks or months of kind of meetings on Zoom or similar, to kind of enhance the time you spend at the show. And as Liz mentioned, follow-up meetings afterwards. So I think, I mean, I don't know if anyone would disagree with you. I mean, Liz, do you have anything to say to that?
I just want to add one more thing, Nick, that also what's happening is the visitor registrations on a virtual event and on a face-to-face event, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the exhibitors' mindsets, because even if I get 1,000 visitors to register for a virtual event, but eventually the people turning out and spending time on your platform is much less than what it is. And in face-to-face, people meet people see each other, people interact. So these are some of these challenges for virtual, which we are facing in the long term.
Sure.
It's interesting though.
Go on, Laura.
Sorry, Nick. I was just going to say it's very interesting, because when we were still operating events back in March of last year, a physical event taking place in the GCC, we actually had clients say to us, there may be less people here, but, my goodness, are they the right people? And I think it's about getting that message across as well in a virtual environment, is that, it goes back to my point that I made earlier around this particular exhibitor who'd made 500 connections in 3 days and called it a bad result. Virtually, you have a lot more data that is accessible to know exactly who you are connecting with or exactly who is interested in your product. You may get less, organic traffic than you do at a physical exhibition, but arguably, I think that comes back on us to say, how can we pull this data and how can we make sure that, or how are we feeding that back to our exhibitors to educate them? But, we've seen in our research as well that, our clients are still reluctant to, the virtual offerings and the virtual tools. And unfortunately, in certain times, it is still a very fragmented customer journey. So there is a lot more education behind that. I think we can all kind of quite comfortably be very happy that everyone's waiting to hold out for the physical event. But I think digital is definitely here to stay. They've got to work in conjunction with each other moving forward. So we really have to take that and look at how we educate our customers moving forward to show them the value that both of these products have side by side.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the other piece is, like, I don't think we should always do a virtual event, because to me that got a little old coming up into the fall time. But what we're finding now is you can unlock pieces of virtual in a very, very cool digital way that matter to your customers. So I just want to go back to the connections piece and the meeting business that we have. The Quartz events business that we've been working with from September to December unlocked 18,000 plus virtual event meetings because there was a need. So it's there, and there are customers who do want to connect, but perhaps the opportunity becomes, don't take the full virtual event experience, but take the pieces that matter most and figure out how to unlock the connections element for your audience.
Yeah, no, good, interesting point. So Giuliano Mangili, so we have a comment from Giuliano. Do you want to, it's good to be adversarial. We're ready for it. That's what we're here for. So Giuliano, can you say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a bit more about your comment?
Hi, everybody. My name is Giuliano, and I'm calling from Italy, from Rome. I've been in this industry for about 15 years. My role, I have a company which is a technical consultancy company. I help mainly Italian stand builders to do projects all around the world, relying on local companies, local technical suppliers. So I've been in touch with pretty much a lot of, different reality around the world. And I believe that, of course, the pandemic has been something that has struck so suddenly that everybody was not prepared to this, to be honest. And after a few months, I started thinking about the future of our industry, because I agree with a lot of people talking about the new normality. Yes, there will be a new normality, but the problem is that I believe that we are all focusing on the wrong approach. The thing is that digital is something that, of course, is part of nowadays life, but it's definitely not the solution for our industry. Our industry is a meeting industry, is a face-to-face industry. When you talk about introducing digital, is something that should be a tool supporting the basics of our industry. It shouldn't be a replacement, because now we don't have the time, the possibility to meet. Yes, of course, we are all stuck in our offices and houses, but it won't be like this. It won't last forever. And the idea of changing our industry is good. I agree with that. But I believe, for example, that the previous model was wrong in the sense that, what is the problem? And you say correctly before, the problem now to restart for us is international traveling. International traveling it won't be here for another year and a half, 2 years probably, because if you listen to all the forecasts about the airlines, they saying that they will be back to 2019 volumes in 2025. Okay, it means that if you take out the tourism numbers, all the rest, 50% or even more, is business travel. So what does it mean? The international exhibitions, we all talking about international exhibitions. So we are not talking about the tuning car exhibition down the road. We're talking about the huge, humongous exhibition like Euroshop, like Adipec, like Cial in Paris. So what's the problem about that? The problem is that you cannot have the exhibitors, you cannot have the people going there. So what's the solution? The solution is digital? I don't think so. The digital solution is creating us more problem. First of all, you can use this kind of solution for organizer, but what about all the other people involved in the industry? What about the catering people? What about the trussing people? What about all the suppliers? So we cannot go in digital. Can we? No, we cannot go in digital. Just the organizer can go in digital because they can do a platform. But the platform also is just something that doesn't cover all your budget. Of course, I would like to ask organizer, how much revenue you do with digital compared to face-to-face events. I believe there is just a small share of that, and that's a story. But also the other story is, if I do a platform as an organizer, let's say in the oil industry, how many platforms there will be in the future, digital platform? And do you really believe that an exhibitor can attend your digital platform as an opportunity for every single exhibition that is going on in every single industry? Because we have to take into account that in the last 5 or 10 years, in each industry, we have seen the proliferation of events all around the world. And you want to create, how many digital platforms you want to create?
Okay, Giuliano, I'm going to stop you there because you've asked about 10 questions. So let's answer your first 10.
Sorry. It was more than a question. It was like, I'm a bit angry.
I love we love the Italian passion.
All right.
So Laura, do you want to pick any one or two of Giuliano's questions and answer them?
So look, we are, as there are many on this call, an exhibition organizer, which is face-to-face predominantly. So just to be clear, COVID-19 and the pandemic, in my eyes, has not diminished the value of in-person events. In fact, it's helped us recognize the importance of it. You know, for me, our customers are telling us that it's 100% what they want. I think, you know, even as new technology is being enhanced and accepted, traditional events as we know them, or as our customers know them, remain an integral tool for them. I think what we're talking about here is that, you know, we have been thrown into a situation that has forced us, especially where I sit right now in a national lockdown, as many people I'm sure do, it's forced us to do things digitally, which actually has now almost piqued interest for our customers. So I'm not talking about, you know, educating them and educating them only in a virtual environment and removing the value of face-to-face and the connections that they can have. I'm talking about how do we now master the art of combining the demand now for both on-site and a digital presence, and how do you get that balance? You know, for me, like I said before, there is a model, and I think you mentioned it there, that the model that we were operating in an exhibition world for so many years, it's amazing how it didn't transform that much. You know, in the decade, for instance, that I've been in the industry, it didn't really transform that much. Whereas now it certainly is transforming. And I think that's piquing interest within our customers that we have to be open to. And there are going to be customers that want the choice moving forward, and it's actually going to open up, you know, a much broader audience to our customers, and they have the choice whether to connect with them digitally or in person. And that's exactly what our customers are saying to us, that actually I will look back at the data and I will look at what markets I want to operate in physically and what markets maybe I want to operate in virtually. I'll give you one question back, maybe for people either to comment on or to think about. When we look at the exhibition industry, and we look at, like in any industry right now, your first timers, so your first time customer, right? A customer that has never, you know, done business with you at the moment. Like, how do you manage that customer? So a customer that was meant to exhibit with you, for example, in 2020, who now maybe has a lot smaller budget, maybe has lost resources, maybe needs that brand exposure, but really cannot travel or be on site. How do we accommodate that customer? And how do we make sure that once we've retained that customer, they're still with us in 10 years' time? What do we do for that particular customer? So there's 100% for me, virtual is not the way moving forward. No, not at all. There is a combination of both digital and in-person experiences that we now have to somehow get right. So that would be the way that I would answer the 10 questions.
Brilliant. And there's actually been a couple of people agreeing with you in the chat. Liz, do you have anything to add?
I echo everything Laura said. I think what this opportunity is a new canvas for us to say, how do we deliver, and what our opportunities our customers want, and how do we connect? And we've got more at our fingertips. We do have to educate folks on the value of digital and how it looks different than face-to-face. But I do see, as I mentioned before, Clarion's business model will be different. We'll have digital, we'll have live, and we'll have face-to-face. And you can take one or some or all of it to help reach the suite of folks you want to find in your industry.
Great, thank you. So we've got a question now from Danica. There she is, just popped up on my screen. Hi, Danica. Danica, if you don't know, based in the States, was at the Surf Expo at the OCCC in Orlando. Was that a couple of weeks ago already? And she's been doing some great case studies of events that are open in the States, published for CISO. So please check those out. Hey, Danica, what was your question?
So I didn't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I was just curious, if you could tell us a little bit more about the data that you're providing exhibitors, because you know, I've heard some exhibitors that participate in the digital event saying they're not getting the data that they want and need from some show organizers in terms of, you know, it may be taking too long, or it's not like complete buyer data that they're looking for. So if you could just comment on what kind of data that you're providing for exhibitors.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump on that one. So I think when we first started, our immediate focus was make it as easy as possible for attendees and buyers to get into the platform and experience something digitally. And then we thought, oh my gosh, we're missing core pieces of data. So we backed up and said, we can capture more because they have a need. So let's ask the questions and metadata and demographics we need. So we've done that. What we're providing is really valuable connections. And what we can do digitally is make sure that folks are opting in to receive information, but it's based on their actions. And I think that's a big piece. They're taking active actions to connect, and that is turning into leads. Some of the best generation for leads I've seen have come from content series and demonstrations. So folks who attend those education sessions, those live demonstrations, that's a hot lead list that is now we're finding we can turn those folks over to more face-to-face meetings, which has been very beneficial to our exhibitors.
Interesting. Laura, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I'd echo a lot of what Liz is saying in terms of data. I think, again, looking specifically at my role is that, you know, we want to understand in terms of a continuous improvement model, you know, what do our customers actually feel about these platforms? You know, are they getting, you know, and are they meeting their objectives? Are they getting the right business connections? And how do you prove? You know, there was always a model where when they had a meeting on site, you could almost say, okay, have you engaged with that person? Have you had a meeting with them on site? We could monitor that. Whereas what we're finding now is that when it's online, we're really struggling to monitor whether they've actually had the meeting and whether that connection has really taken place. And to me, that has a lot to do with the technology that we're using. So we're really imploring our vendors that we're working with to find a way to, you know, to prove that these meetings have taken place, because that's enormous. And that's the kind of data that we can start to give back to our customers, so that they can really start to understand the ROI in these kind of digital platforms.
I also find that if you provide very personalized experiences that are of value, customers are going to tell you more, because you can use what they give you to help really tailor the experience for them. And that has been a game changer for us. And I think something that we as an industry can look forward to as we go ahead and go back to live too.
Yeah. But it's also about just adding to that, you know, for me as well, it's a lot about the customer feedback that you're getting. You know, we're so used to in this industry just looking at the end of the event and surveying our customers, reviewing that and looking how we can kind of feed that in, or looking at an NPS score and saying, okay, how well did we do this year? You know, actually it's about, this is a whole new journey. You know, we are asking our customers to, you know, dive into a whole new platform. So what does that customer journey actually look like? You know, at what touch points are you getting feedback from them? You know, what's working for them? What's not working for them? Don't wait till the end of the virtual event to ask for their feedback. You know, let's try and kind of keep on the move here and evolve as they are kind of giving us feedback. And that for me is just as important, dare I say it, than, you know, some of the ROI stats that we're giving our customers back. If digital is certainly here to stay, that's what we need to get.
Okay, thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So, you know, if you have any questions, burning questions, please get them in the chat now. So I'd like to go to Stephen Corrick, who heads up Comexposium in the US, who has a question about China. So I guess we're going to field this to you, Laura. Stephen, are you there?
Yes, can you see me, hear me? Okay.
Hi.
Good. Yes, good morning from New York. Great to see and hear everyone. Yeah, I mean, great conversation. I guess, you know, like many large international organizers, we've had some decent sized events running in China and hope to do more, of course. Candidly, they don't look a lot different. I mean, you know, from what we would have seen a couple of years ago. People are wearing masks, obviously, but that's not really a cultural difference there. Smaller, yes, because there's not much international, but there is a domestic, large domestic market, of course, in most cases. So just wondered, I mean, what experiences they're hearing from the larger international organizers? Are their China operations fulfilling this sort of promise of doing both digital and live in person? Because I think that, you know, we're skirting around a few subjects here. Not when I say skirting, we're touching on many. And I forget his name, but the passionate gentleman from Italy, I think he hit some of the nails on the head there, that what do you do with these large expos that are, that are tens, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue? Suddenly, okay, you can run an online event. Little deja vu here with 2008, 9/11. We went through this, not for as long, of course, but so I just wanted to get some perspective on that to see what people's thoughts were, because from the US perspective, everything we're talking about, it kind of feels like we're trying to become associations. If you read the association's charter, everything we've talked about today is what they stated in 2018 and 2019, ongoing connections, online, face-to-face, ongoing community. So is that where we're headed as an industry, to be more, because and the last point I'll make is when we talk about, so much of this is keeping our communities connected, I'm going to say it because maybe others won't. It's about keeping us connected, first and foremost. We want to stay in the business. Yes, it's obviously part of that is keeping the community connected, but I want my Comexposium business to be connected to the communities we serve. And that's why we're doing online stuff, not just in some great altruistic model here. So just wanted to be candid and say that's where I'm coming from.
Laura.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, there are hybrid models being rolled out in China at Informa markets, one more recently towards the end of last year. And again, that's purely because, there is so much international travel that can't be done over there. So that hybrid model is suiting, that particular market. There is still that want to have, the face-to-face. I don't think I can stress that enough. There is still that model and that want there. I think health and safety is still a huge concern though. And, despite kind of vaccine rollouts and where we could be, I think that health and safety issue is going to be one, unfortunately, being candid as well, that's still going to live on, even when, say, in the UK, hopefully we're all vaccinated by September, there's still going to be a fear there. So again, for me, it goes back to your point about, what we're doing as organisers and why we're doing it. I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, we all want to stay, in the business, and therefore that's why essentially we're doing what we're doing. But at the same time, we are getting feedback from customers, even when things lifted here in the UK, that they were still nervous to get on a tube. They were still nervous to go to a hotel. So it's actually not, some of it is, dare I say it, not in our control. So the fear of the travel, it's very clear to me that what our customers are saying is it's not about the fear of when they get to one of our venues, that they're pretty comfortable with. And that's the feedback we're getting in China as well. The fear is the travel and where they stay. And that's the other kind of communities that we've got to stay connected with. So, I think we are starting to see a silver lining and some, slowly some good data coming out of some, events over in China, but they are domestic still, and then other than that, they're international, but in a hybrid environment. And at the moment, the feedback is genuinely pretty positive from sort of our customers on that side. Liz, do you have anything to add from your side?
I mean, I'm with you. I think everyone's looking to return to live events. I can talk from the North American perspective. We actually, fortunately, were able to hold 2 events in 2020 at the end. We held Smoky Mountain in November and the Grand Strand, a regional show in Myrtle Beach. While attendance was down, customer sentiment was up. NPS was double digits. People really want to get back to doing business as they used to do. And I think that's really positive. And it gives us the confidence to say, we've got this. And we have to keep our pulse on health and safety. We have to keep our pulse and hope and optimism on the vaccine. But we can do more here to help connect folks, but also turn towards getting back to live, hopefully soon.
Great. And just a word on that, because there's been a couple of comments and questions about the timelines of the return and the vaccination rollouts and all of that. Quite frankly, we could spend a whole nother session on that topic, but just to add to that from our point of view, as Laura mentioned, yes, we are very much, our fates are tied to that of the airline industry and the travel industry and the hotels and the hospitality industry, which, if it wasn't brought into focus before, it certainly is now. So, Giuliano kind of said that he thinks it might be another 1 or 2 years before that returns. I can't believe it. I'm an optimist, but also just the devastation to all those huge industries that certainly do arguably, have a bigger share of voice than we do. I can't believe that will be allowed to happen. So, for example, what they're talking about, the digital passport, whether that's vaccination or a kind of, a recent test, we need to get it going sooner rather than later. And the EU heads of state meeting taking place today, I think will be testament to that. And as Kai also mentioned in the chat, we'll have some data. We're going to release our 6th monthly global barometer next week. So please stay tuned for that. So, you know, a couple more questions left. I've got one which I was talking about this morning with one of our members, which was about pricing. Because again, over the last few years, it kind of comes up occasionally and it's kind of, you know, can we kind of tweak it somehow, and intelligent pricing and this, that, and the other, you know. But he was talking about a subscription model, which various people have kind of floated, you know. And again, if we have different engagements, different touch points throughout the year, different metrics, different meetings, you know, does that mean that you're going to price it differently? Because clearly you're going to have to, or maybe you won't, but get away from selling the square meters at that show. So any thoughts on kind of future pricing, Liz?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I focus on sort of the one-to-one meetings and connections, there is definitely value, and there's definitely a model to have a per meeting cost. We're doing that very well with our hosted buyer models, and we're going to be looking to do more of that. So customers are willing to pay for quality and connections and value for meetings. So I think that's definitely something we as an industry need to look more at. When I think about membership, we're launching on-demand learning membership series, and our attendees are willing to pay a membership to have an ongoing content base where they can learn and connect. So I think that's another model that can be interesting for a lot of us as we go forward as well.
Potentially replacing the associations that Stephen referenced. And Laura, to you?
Yeah, I think we've been fairly lucky at Informa with various of our arms, Taylor and Francis, etc., that have already adopted a lot of subscription models over the years. So I think really what we're trying to look at is, you know, going back to those meaningful connections. If you have a pricing model that offers these subscriptions, that you are actually getting the right kind of people to these platforms and to these events. And that's what we need to be careful with as well. You may get, you know, X number of registrations, but actually have a serious drop-off rate when it comes to the, you know, the virtual platforms you're putting on. And that's when you get the disappointment from your customers. So we are operating a couple of these subscription models to try and get that, you know, those meaningful connections and the right kind of customers in for our exhibitors on these sites.
Thank you. Okay, so I mean, I'm going to start to wrap up. You know, where's the hour gone? But just in closing, you know, Liz and Nora, if I could ask you, you know, fundamentally, so do you think the pandemic has changed, you know, the customer value of exhibitions? Sort of yes or no? You know, what do you think, Laura?
Yes, but for the positive. I think, you know, it's like if someone was to say to me, or 5 years ago, you know, how do you measure customer experience? You know, it's not an overnight thing. It doesn't happen overnight or happen over time. And this is exactly what's happening here. The value of exhibitions is changing, and over time we will see the positive impact. There is going to be a boom. There is no doubt about it. You tell me, Nick, or ask me, Nick, what kind of event do I want to go to tomorrow? If I could, it would be, I'd want to go to a live concert. Right? Okay, it's not an exhibition, sorry everyone, a live concert. We're going to see a boom in the industry. And so I think the value is changing, but I think it's changing in a very positive way. So have some optimism.
Perfect, thank you, Laura. And Liz, over to you. So, you know, has the customer value changed? And also, as Laura mentioned, yeah, I did ask before, you know, what's the event that you're most looking forward to going back to?
Yeah, so I agree. I think the customer value has changed. The promise of what we've always delivered, connections, hasn't. I just think now we have more opportunity to deliver connections in a different way and probably a more meaningful way, which I'm excited to think about as we go forward. What do I want to return to? I want to return to events, of course, but I'm a mom of 2 boys. So I'm very much into sports with these kids. So I'm dying to go back to an NBA game. So are my kids. So I'm looking to get back to enjoying things out of my house and experiences with my family.
Well, I think we'd all agree with that. So, you know, thank you very much, Laura and Liz, for joining us. Really interesting conversation, and hopefully we can extend this touch point and you know, carry on this conversation, you know, perhaps in a future UFI Connects. So thank you all for joining us. Pascal, if we can have the slide up. Just to let you know, thanks to our UFI Diamond sponsors, TSEB, Qatar National Tourism Council, Shenzhen World, and Freeman. We have more Connects coming up in the coming weeks. Please check on ufi.org/connects. And that's it. To play us out, we have a song chosen by Liz, which for her represents this year, 2021. Thank you all for joining us. See you next